Scott Simpson here, Nimble W Numbers on Twitter. Excited to be the newest member of the Guilty as Charged podcast. I'm talking Alex, Tyler, and my man Steven. Really excited to be joining you guys this year, talking fantasy all year long. So, last week's episode, my first episode, we talked all about the Chargers season preview in fantasy lens. So we talked about Justin Herbert, what he's going to do, our man Austin Eckler. We talked wide receiver as well with Keenan Allen. We did not get to touch on the newest member of the offensive weapon that Justin Herbert has at his disposal, and that is Jared Cook. So today we are going to get into Jared Cook. We're going to talk what his presence in this offense mean. What does it look like? He comes from the Saints. He was under Joe Lombardi for the last 2 years. So we're going to jump right in. Excited to be with you today. This is our agenda, as you can see. We are the Guilty as Charged Fantasy Podcast. Proud to be part of the Blue Wire family. Please do subscribe. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter as well. That is a great place to find GAC, Guilty as Charged Podcast 17. Go find it on the Twitters. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to talk Jared Cook and his fantasy preview. So the first thing we're going to do is a little bit of housekeeping. I am Scott Simpson, Nimble W Numbers. Where can you find me? Well, on Twitter, Nimble W Numbers, pretty easy. And then on the internet too, nimblewnumbers.com. I'm also part of the broadcast team of the Fantasy Millionaires, my partner, the Ralph Macho Mike on Twitter. And you can find us at the FF Millionaires. I just got signed up for Underdog Fantasy. I'm really excited for this, guys. There's going to be best ball drafts from now until the beginning of the season. They've got season-long competitions coming out where you draft against people for cash. I'm really excited. It's a new angle on DFS, mixing coming out in the fall. Right now, you can do pick'ems each night. They've got different sports where you're looking at the lines of players. It's a gambler's delight. It's a nice little edge around for places, where I live, like in Maryland, where, you're not able to actually gamble yet. Well, soon, hopefully. But please do go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Promo code NIMBLE. I'm really excited. That is my name. So please do that. And you can find me everywhere you find Nimble. That's just the truth. But let's talk about our guy today, Jared Cook. We're trying to, welcome him, to the family. So this is a press release that the Chargers put out. Welcome, Jared Cook. Let's talk a little bit about Jared Cook and what he brings to the table, right? This is his player profile over at playerprofiler.com. Shout out the Podfather. So we take a look at his metrics, his 40-yard dash time. He had a 4.5. Now I know he's gotten a little older. Now he's 34, but he is fast. That is one of the upgrades that he brings to this position right now. Hunter Henry, not a fleet of foot. So 4.5, that's a great 40 time you want. His speed score also is in the 97th percentile, 99th percentile, by the way, for his speed score. His burst score in the 98th percentile, his catch radius in the 97th percentile. So what you're looking at is somebody who's very athletic. He brings that downfield presence. He can take the ball and get a little further than Hunter Henry did. Hunter Henry's yards per reception we'll take a look at in a little bit. Under 10, Jared Cook's over 13. So you're looking at a little bit different receiver, but also Lombardi coming in, so it's going to be a little bit different of an offense this year, not going to be a mirror image. This is not a one-for-one swap either. I do think Hunter Henry got more targets last year than Jared Cook will this year, but I think what you're looking at is a different type of athlete. I looked at the video that the Saints put out, and also the video from the NFL to prep for the podcast. He is lethal inside that 20-yard line in the red zone. Not maybe on the 1 or 2 where you're doing jump balls with them. They do that once in a while, but really getting into the end zone where you're getting behind the linebacker in front of the safety. Jump balls for him. He's bigger, stronger, taller, and more athletic than most of the safeties and linebackers as well. So you get him matched up in the slot. Watched him run out of the slot. I watched him run out of the Z. So he can run receiver. He can run slot. So he just brings a different dimension to the offense, which I'm excited to kind of see how he does this year and how he brings that skill set over to the Chargers. He's also going to be paired with, Donald Parham. I'm familiar with him from his days in the XFL and his huge frame. I think combined, they're going to have a lot of targets. They're going to have, I think it was over 200 receptions last year at the position. So, or fantasy points at the position. So there's going to be a lot of targets, probably over 100, 20 targets overall for this position. So I'm excited for this. So let's take a look at how Jared Cook did last year when he was playing for the Saints, right? He scored in the tight end 17. That's where he finished last year. So he wasn't setting the world on fire. He did have a down year overall. He did get less targets and see less playing time. But he did still score 7 touchdowns. So that's that red zone presence I was mentioning earlier. He really does fit the mold for that 20-yard line and in target for Herbert. I think Herbert's going to love him in there. He had 504 receiving yards, only 37 receptions last year. So you can see his yards per reception up there. He does get downfield and stretch the field. Contested catch rate, pretty good. It was 8th best overall at the position. I've noticed for him in the film that I studied that he can take a safety's arm in between him and the ball. He plays right through it. He's just bigger and stronger than a lot of them. So I think he brings that dimension as well. Drops, he was 10th. Yeah, that's not too bad. As long as it's not Deontay Johnson level stuff. So here's Jared Cook's overview at his history. From the teams where he started, from Tennessee to the LA Rams now, but I think they were the St. Louis Rams at the time. Sorry, Green Bay. He had a year there. Vegas, New Orleans. So you can see his better years were when he was getting more targets. And his best year was in Las Vegas, or now Oakland, where he had 193.6 fantasy points, caught 6 touchdowns. So, did really well. Went to New Orleans. He didn't disappoint the first year. He had 705 yards, 9 touchdowns, 16.4 yards per reception. I mean, that's just crushing it. He was getting 12 fantasy points per game. Last year, he dipped to 8.5. I think he's more in the 9.5 to 10 range per game. He'll have spikes depending on touchdowns. It's going to be touchdown dependent this year, but this guy just gives you the broad picture of where he's been and kind of how he was used in different offenses. And I think the most effective use of him is going to be in the red zone. And I think it's also going to be to move the chains for first down. So I think his targets will go up this year from last year. In that offense, it was a weird offense. Drew Brees was hurt. Taysom Hill was in there running around. It wasn't a functional, from stem to start to finish offense. So I'm excited to see what Justin Herbert can do and give him a little bit more targets. We'll talk projections in just a little bit, but what I want to do too is kind of look at the position over there at the Chargers last year and kind of see what they did, how many targets that they had, how many fantasy points. So overall points per game, Hunter Henry averaged 10.4. Donald Parham filled in for him when he wasn't, able to play. And, he had 3.4. So not a lot of average over there, but if you add it all up, and that's, you're looking kind of the total picture of the position, you've got 18 points a game, which is something that, you want to be able to see. I like that from the position. Anywhere 18 to 20 points a game is going to be viable to at least stream. DFS purposes, it's going to be there as well. So there is opportunity at the position. Last year, you see Hunter Henry had 93 targets. I don't think Cook's going to get 93 targets. I think that's a bit of a stretch. It's a little bit, I just think it's going to be a different role for him as he's mentoring. And I think there's going to be opportunity also for the Chargers to draft a tight end this year, which is a day or two away, depending on where you're at. So this is the right now, the current tight end ADP in fantasy. This is pulled from fantasydata.com. Love those guys. Travis Kelce, of course, being 1. So we'll have to go all the way down. Jared Cook is currently being drafted 20th after Irv Smith, Gesicki, Higbee, OJ Howard, Tanyan, Zach Ertz. I'm just going up from 20. Zach Ertz is 14, Jonnu Smith, Dallas Goedert, Hayden Hurst. So that's the top 11 backwards. So, hope you can keep up with that. I'm nimble with numbers, so I can. That's what I do. But I think that Jared Cook is being undervalued right there. I think that he does finish better than 20th overall. His ADP right now is 154th. So, if you're in a 12-team league, if you're doing best ball or whatever it is that you're looking at right now, I mean, you're talking well into the 13th, 14th round. Sometimes I'm probably not even drafted because people draft him sometimes early. So he definitely is somebody to pick up for best ball. I really like him getting touchdowns. There'll be a game this year, maybe he gets 2 touchdowns, and that'll be a nice little score for you. I think this year he does outperform Tyler Higbee, OJ Howard, Zach Ertz, maybe even Hayden Hurst. I think Hayden Hurst is a little bit of value too, depending on what the Falcons do at that position for sure. In general, I do think there is value to be had in Jared Cook. He's not a world beater. He's not going to set the world on fire, But, I think that, some respectable projections given where he's been and what he's capable of doing in this offense if he plays the whole season. I put him for, 55 receptions on 75 targets. So, down about 20 targets, 18 targets from last year for the, Hunter Henry, what he got. It could fluctuate depending on the role that he plays and then the offensive scheme and where they're at in the game. But I gave him 475 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. I do think he's going to eat on the touchdowns. I think touchdowns are a hard thing to project, but he has averaged the last 3 years 7 touchdowns. So 6, 9, 7, 22 is the score. You add it up, you divide it by 3, nimble numbers, it's going to be around 7 each year. So I think that is a nice round number for him. And I think if he plays the whole season and maintains his health, that's going to be something he can achieve. And that gets him around 145 fantasy points overall if you're in a season long. His positional ranking for me is 17th. So it's not going to be 20th. It's a little bit better than that. I think he's a little bit undervalued. I think for me as a DFS guy as well, so if you don't know what DFS is, it's daily fantasy. It's where you play each week. You draft a team and then you have different players. Jared Cook is probably not going to be overpriced this year. He'll be underpriced, but I think he'll be a value game-to-game matchup. And I think that if you're not drafting him as your second tight end, if you're not in a deeper sleeper league and you're streaming tight end, there'll be times where, you'll hear me just say, hey, this is a Jared Cook week. You might want to stream him because of the matchup against some of these defenses and the opportunities that it presents. So welcome, Jared Cook. Excited for you to be part of the Charger Nation. I'm excited as well. Bolt up, my friend. And everybody there, please do check me out. I am Scott Simpson over at NimbleW Numbers on Twitter, nimblewnumbers.com. In the fall, we'll have more DFS content coming out of NimbleW Numbers for sure. Right now, I'm over at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network writing articles as well. My man Bo_McBigtime on Twitter is part of that. He writes for Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and he's part of a show that is on Friday nights with me. I do the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, has the show The Fantasy Millionaires on Monday at 10 o'clock, and then also Chalk Blocked with Bo McBigtime and Jordan Vanek, one over on Twitter as well. We've got some bangers coming up. The guests are going to be incredible. Howard Bender is coming on the show. We've got Matt Harmon coming on the show. It is just, I know D Brown's coming on the show. Lofty from Awesomos coming on the show. So if you're a DFS guy, if you're a fantasy football head, that's a show for you. That show's only going to get bigger and better. So please do check me out and check out all the guys over at the Guilty as Charged podcast, the whole team. Subscribe to YouTube, please. Like this video. I like you. I appreciate you guys. I love doing this. This is one of my favorite things I get to do. Don't tell my wife. I'm really excited to do this.